Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have roll call, please?
Trustee Migliaccio? Trustee Gonzalez-Ewan?
Right here.
Trustee Trustee Delphine Polk? Here. Trustee Johannes?
Here.
Trustee Gonzalez-Brito?
Here.
Trustee Quinlan?
Here.
You have a quorum.
We have a report of action taken in closed session. Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
To approve.
Second.
Motion was made by trustee Johannes and second was made by trustee Brito. Call the question?
Student trustee Migliaccio?
Yes.
Student trustee Malik?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Here.
Trustee Johannes?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez-Ewan?
Yes.
Trustee Napoli Bellarice?
Yes.
Trustee Delphine Polk?
Yes.
Trustee Quinlan?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez-Brito?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Do we have any public communication on matters that are not on the agenda?
Yes, Board President, we do. We have Robert.
Hello. Oh, nice. Sweet. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Robert Crowley. I'm a full-time instructor at Laney College, and I'm the cash department co-chair. I'm here today to speak on the updates to the athletic field house renovation since the tragic passing of our former cornerstone, John Bean. After Coach Bean's passing, we had a meeting with the leaders of our college and the district on how we were going to move forward. The athletic field house, which is the main space for our student athletes and several of our instructors, was in need of a renovation and repair. The main concern of our staff was an upgrade and revamping of the security in and around the facility for obvious reasons. After hearing our concern, the district got to work quickly and passed an emergency fund of over $220,000 for security upgrades at the facility, as many of our cameras were in poor locations and our doors and perimeter of the athletic field house were unsecure. We have had a history of vandalism and break-ins, as well as student athletes being harassed by transients. In December, we were given an itemized list of everything that was going to be done and an estimated month of completion, most of which was scheduled to be completed in January. At that time, we were also told that we were hoping the renovations would be completed by the beginning of the spring semester, and in the meantime, the cash and athletic department would be housed in the best center on campus, as well as the computer lab. The college and the district have been gracious in giving us space to resume serving the 170 plus full-time student athletes and 300 plus students that take courses in our department. This gives our student athletes the consistency and support they were promised while being recruited to the college. The semester began and we were told renovations had been delayed due to many of the doors and other perimeter security not being ready due to back orders. We've been allowed to stay at the best center and the computer lab, making do and adjusting our schedules while still moving forward to ensure that the students that we serve have a place to work every day, just as they would at the field house. Sorry if I'm too loud, I can step back. The latest update that we received was that the doors and other security upgrades will not be ready until the middle of March. However, over the weekend, we were informed that the college wants us to move back to the field house or find other classrooms on campus, as the best center is now needed for meetings and CPR training. If you go to the field house right now, the same front doors that were there on November 13th are still there. The same perimeter doors are still there. The lights have been replaced, the paint's been refinished, the exterior fencing has been reinforced, but there are a number of security measures that were promised in January that have not been completed. Just this semester, we have had a community member renting our facility attacked while locking up the field, and no security was there to respond. If you go to the field house right now, on the exterior wall and on the ground outside, someone wrote, "I am going to KI," and they didn't finish their sentence, which is a haunting message to find knowing the history of the building.
20 seconds.
Every meeting we have had, we've requested upgraded security, and what appears to be a mandate is now looking like a broken promise. We cannot allow our department and student athletes to be bounced around the campus just because an aforementioned upgrade has not been completed. Are our students not more important than meetings and CPR training? Peralta prides itself on servicing the underserved, but they are now asking
Time's up.
to return to a building that is unsecured and has gone through minimal changes since November 13th. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments?
No, Board President.
Thank you. Let's see. Our study session with the community safety presentation.
Well, good evening, trustees. First of all, I want to say welcome to Berkeley City College and thank Berkeley City College and our marketing communications team and the team here at Berkeley City College for warmly welcoming us and the district community tonight for this board meeting. I want to invite President Richardson to come up and give a couple of brief welcoming remarks to you all.
Thank you, Chancellor Gilkerson. Good evening, Chancellor, Board President Quinlan, trustees, students, colleagues, and members of our community. Welcome to Berkeley City College. I would first like to thank, as our Chancellor did, all the people who worked so diligently to help prepare for this evening's board study session. My executive assistant, Annie Liu, our custodial staff, our AV champion, Joe Bay, our district AV team, and our amazing board clerk, Sasha Amiri. Thank you so much for all of your work to prepare for this evening. Last year, Berkeley City College celebrated its 50th year. For the last 20 years, we have supported the growth and academic progress of our students right here in this one building at 2050 Center Street. I'm excited to announce that the construction of our long-awaited second building, BCC West, located at 2118 Milvia Street, is now complete. That's right. And it will open in fall 2026. I'd like to thank the taxpayers of the City of Berkeley, our extraordinary construction and design teams, our Chancellor, Dr. Tamil Gilkerson, the PCCD, Department of General Services team, and last but not least, the Board of Trustees for voting to move forward on this project. Because of your leadership and steadfast support, BCC is expanding its capacity to serve our community, creating space where future leaders and critical thinkers will be empowered and prepared to make a lasting impact locally and globally. Please save the date for a ribbon cutting on Thursday, September 10th, 2026, between 12:30 and 1:30. We are looking forward to seeing everyone here, there. This spring, BCC has once again shown that we are the college that does. Enrollment is on the rise. Our total FTS has increased from 1,456.24 in spring 2025 to 1,462.61 in spring 2026. It's growth, so we'll take it. We're excited about it. Our census headcount has also grown from 6,985 students in spring 2025 to 7,205 students in spring 2026. These gains reflect the collective and unwavering dedication of our classified professionals, our faculty, and our administrators. So I want to give a big thank you and shout out to all of them. Tomorrow, BCC will host our career fair under the leadership of our student services team, acting VPSS, Ajani Bird, Dean Renaya Johnson, and transfer and career coordinator, Andrea Williams. Because it is Black History Month, this year our career fair will be complemented by a panel of Black professionals who will share their insights navigating careers in law, business, and entrepreneurship. This event will take place right here in this very auditorium tomorrow between 12:30 and 1:30. Again, we look forward to seeing everyone there. Lastly, we honor Black history in a political landscape that challenges equity, questions inclusion, and sometimes seeks to narrow the very story of who belongs. In these moments, we return to the words of Amanda Gorman, for there is always light If only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it. Black history teaches us that courage is not optional. It is required. Thank you again for being here this evening. And now it is my pleasure to turn the meeting back over to our Chancellor, Dr. Tamil Gilkerson. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Richardson. And again, thank you to everyone who helped make this possible. So trustees, tonight, in support of the board's 2025-26 goals, this informational presentation provides an update on the district's ongoing work to develop and implement a holistic, trauma-informed, culturally responsive, and equity-focused community safety model. As I think about our collective journey the last 2 years, I reflect on a memo I wrote in 2020 as the president of Laney College during the district-wide discussions about divesting from police services. I'm reminded of how transformative that period was for my own understanding of safety, responsibility, and the collective work required to make both real. Our community was navigating fear of racialized violence, fear of immigration enforcement, fear of being unseen or unheard. Within Peralta, these conversations were deeply personal, yet there was also hope and courage, a willingness to imagine something better. At Laney, the Restoring Our Communities team and the president's office at that time hosted a forum that became a turning point in how I thought about safety. Rather than centering law enforcement, we intentionally asked these questions. What truly keeps communities safe? And what role do we play? What values and strengths can we build upon? What actionable steps can we take to define safety in a way that honors the humanity and agency of our community? Anchored by insights of Zach Norris, who was then the executive director of the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights, and Rita Alford, the founder of the Restorative Justice Training Institute, the forum gave language to what many felt intuitively but had struggled to articulate, that safety cannot be outsourced, it must be cultivated. The notion of "we keep us safe" was not just aspirational, it was a collective responsibility to create the structures and culture that makes safety possible. The forum and conclusions derived therefrom expanded my own views. Safety is not only the absence of harm, but the presence of belonging, care, and accountability. The forum also revealed something uncomfortable but essential. Our existing systems did not allow for nuance or humanity. The infrastructure for alternative responses outside of law enforcement did not yet exist. That realization underscored for me that divestment alone was never going to be enough. We also needed to invest in new systems of care, response, and accountability. This learning taught me that meaningful transformation requires more than just policy change. It requires courage, consistency, and institutional will. So it was a seed of an idea that continues to guide me. Safety is not something that we only contract out. It is something we create together. And our colleges, really, if you think about it, are already deeply invested in creating opportunity for educational and economic advancement, which are cornerstones of safety in our community. We keep ourselves safe by taking responsibility for the systems we build, the culture we nurture, and the community we serve. So I want to offer just my sincere gratitude to this district community for really your continued thoughtful engagement as we continue to assess and further develop our community safety program. And I'm especially grateful to everyone who engaged in our shared governance processes to bring forward this recommendation to you tonight in this presentation. And I also want to thank Executive Director Pridgeon, who will now I'll invite up to do the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Gilkerson. Good evening, President Quinlan, trustees, Chancellor Gilkerson, It is truly a thrill for me to be here this evening to present to you an update on community safety, as well as a timeline for implementation of a hybrid holistic community safety model. I'm particularly thrilled because this is the culmination of a lot of work, a lot of things behind the scenes, but most importantly, thorough engagement of our campus community and our district community. I want to say that I'm incredibly proud of the students, classified staff, faculty, and administrators who over the course of the last few months, despite dealing with grave tragedy and carrying a heavy heart, have leaned into the conversation about community safety and what they would like to see as a model that they feel will keep them safe. One of the things that I'll be covering, or some of the things that I'll be covering this evening are on the agenda, and I will not read it in case some people are not suffering from insomnia. But one of the things that I really want to center from the very beginning is the reason we are all here is for our students, to ensure their success, to create environments of safety and belonging. And ultimately, what we have modeled is something that is integrated, holistic, and designed to ensure the well-being of everyone in the district, specifically our students. Back in the spring of 2024, Chancellor Gilkerson engaged the entire district community in listening sessions to better understand their concerns around safety. Our institutional research also surveyed the district community, again, to glean thoughts and concerns and needs around safety. And in July of that year, I really had the privilege of being appointed to an amazing team of leaders. And that September, I had the opportunity to present to you at Merritt College a vision for a holistic hybrid community safety model with district employed personnel that were armed and unarmed, that leveraged technology and people to meet and exceed district expectations. Additionally, we explored partnering with law enforcement agencies around our jurisdictions. As we all know, there are shortages in staffing, not just in the Bay Area, but across the country. And unfortunately, we were not able to bring that to fruition. And since that time, we have reached out to our community members, and I'm excited to share not just their perspective, but some of the things that we've been doing and some of the updates. Felt it would be important to ground everyone in safety. I know it has different meanings to different people, but in a college setting, I think there are some things that we can objectively agree probably instill a higher sense of safety in people. One of them is a campus that's well lit, having infrastructure that supports technology, safety incidents through preparedness, emergency response, empowering people to make decisions on how best to react in situations of crisis. And then clean, well-maintained spaces are things that give rise to higher senses of safety. And then finally, visible and reliable and trusted personnel that they see day in and day out that they can develop relationships with. An environment of safety is critical to success. And here are some things that our campus community shared with us were important to them with respect to safety. So within the survey, there are things that have been identified. Specifically, 17% of the people mentioned training related to resources and emergency situations. 14% said more personnel, including cameras. There were 85% in the survey that supported a hybrid safety model approach. And then finally, 14%, as we lead to the next slide, recommended lighting. 15%. I have the right glasses on. So here you can see that the district acted on what we heard from our community. The district conducted a lighting study at Laney College, and you can see from the pictures, the new light is considerably brighter than the old light. The picture on the right almost looks like a daytime game. It is so brilliant. And then a few things that might go unnoticed, but reducing foliage, cleaning the streets adjacent to the campus All those things give rise to higher senses of safety. We also partnered with the city of Oakland to provide support and outreach to some of our community members living in mobile RVs around the Laney College and also the district. And as you can see from the before and after picture, if you've had an opportunity to drive 10th or 7th or 5th, that's no longer there. And although, again, it might seem minimal, people feel safer when spaces are cleaner. We heard from our campus community regarding training. We have provided a tremendous amount of training, and these are just some of the things, and I'll highlight a few. De-escalation training. We heard over and over from our community members, they felt that that was necessary to empower them to resolve situations at their level, at their colleges. Also, training related to active threat or surviving an active assailant. There are 2 levels. One is an introduction, but the other is a tabletop exercise. Just for everyone's edification, a tabletop is where you act out real-world situations and determine what steps you would take to resolve them. All those things help people make better decisions when the real things occur. We're providing over 200 training classes through our partnerships. We continue to leverage technology. I'll speak first about our RAVE mobile safety system, which allows us to provide faster and redundant communication in the event of an emergency through text messages, emails, and phones, whether that's a landline or a cell phone. Valcom is a system that we're currently working on implementing. I will say this is in direct response to what we've heard from our community members. So moving forward, RAVE alerts will be pushed to landlines in offices and in classrooms. So if someone doesn't have a cell phone or if it happens to have lost its juice, not only will they receive a light emitting from the landline, but also an audible tone, followed by the RAVE message being broadcast through the speaker on their landline. The Peralta Safety app, quick plug, if you don't have it, download it. But this is a suite of tools that really enable our community to be much safer. First and foremost, again, based upon feedback from our community, RAVE alerts are now pushed to people's cell phones if they have the Peralta Safety app and they have the push notifications enabled. So no matter where you are, no matter where the incident occurs, you will receive the RAVE alert. So if you're on the beaches in Hawaii, turn off your push notification. Emergency procedures. So we've heard from our community. We want to learn more about how to respond to emergencies. Within that tile, there are instructions on what to do in case of an active shooter, an earthquake, a bomb threat. So we don't expect people to do that in the moment, but in their leisure time, they can review it and then be better prepared to respond in case of emergencies. The blue tile in the center that has the light bulb, that is a call 911 feature, which enables the user to connect with emergency services. Simultaneously, their GPS location is shared with community safety. So while they're on the phone with emergency services, we can dispatch community safety personnel to where they're located. Finally, the daily safety log. Traditionally, people have had to drive to community safety, knock on the door, and ask to review the daily safety log, wipe off, the dust, and review it. Now from the palm of your hand, you can review incidents that are occurring across the campuses and the district, including clearly reportable crimes. Finally, improved incident detection. Not only have we purchased more cameras, but we've also leveraged those cameras to the extent that we can now be made aware of incidents that might require further investigation. A couple of examples. Merritt has a nursing program. Occasionally they'll have a student lie on the ground and have another student provides care. We get notifications immediately that someone is prone, maybe in need of medical assistance. It pops up on the screen. Dispatchers don't have to look through hundreds of cameras. They know exactly where it is and where to dispatch people. We had some very talented people, so I'll go, very talented people at Merritt who were part of an acting class and were acting out a scene that appeared to be a fight. We got a notification on that. So those are just some examples of how we're able to proactively respond to things that are happening across the district. And these are all valuable because we understand the context that we operate in, which is an urban environment where campuses are accessible. People can walk in and walk out. And so we need to have systems in place that allow us to create a safer environment within that context. This particular model is designed around data. It's informed how we have modeled this to ensure that we're using relevant data related to things that are happening from the annual security report, also from liability claims, from a number of things, because all these data points inform what we should create. Technology integration, we continue to leverage technology. We have a finite amount of human capital, and it's important that we use them strategically and when necessary. We have a tiered approach that we've implemented, and it's based upon the information that we receive. So we know which resource to dispatch to the particular incident. And then finally, it's important to establish schedules for our personnel that coincide with when we have large groups of people on the campus, so we can be in a position to most readily respond to things that may occur. Shared governance. And I just want to give a nod to the chancellor and her leadership for creating a new shared governance process. And as a result, it has formalized the Holistic Safety and Wellness Committee. It is now a part of the shared governance model. And since January of 2025, community safety has made a minimum of 16 presentations regarding community safety and this particular plan. Since the fall of 2025, the plan has been presented to the following groups, as you can see below, and was formally recommended from the Holistic Safety and Wellness Committee, as well as the Planning and Budget Committee. And there's something in there about talk about safety. Some people like to eat. I don't know who they are, but I think tacos draw people out. The community safety model. So these values underscore the department that will be serving our community. Trauma-informed. Rather than read that definition, I'll describe to you what trauma-informed means. It's being cognizant of past and present trauma, ensuring that we do not re-traumatize or cause harm, and then preserving dignity. So what that looks like in the real world is we get a situation where someone calls about a student that they believe is misbehaving or disrupting. We have someone from community safety respond. Hello, my name is Abdul. I'm here to try to help. Can you tell me what happened to you? So it's not taking an approach that we're implying that someone is guilty of something. It's more of an inquisitive and curious approach, trying to find out what could have happened to this person that is causing them to behave this way, so we can try to better resolve it and let them understand that we respect them and we preserve their dignity. Culturally responsive. What that looks like is we've got students from literally across the world who attend our colleges. So how do we connect with them in real ways that understand and respect their culture? So we might have people from East Asia who don't make eye contact because that's just a sign of respect. Well, we don't interpret that as they're being dishonest or maybe disrespectful. This is their culture, and we understand how to connect with them as a result of that understanding. And then equity-driven. In the real world, that looks like us reviewing data when we get calls to respond to students in a variety of situations, and then determining, of all the times we've responded, which groups of students are we responding to most frequently? And are there any disparities in that response? You know, on the surface, it may not mean that there's something wrong, but we certainly have to investigate to determine if there are things we can do differently to ensure equitable outcomes. So here are some of the definitions in our community safety model. And the first one I want to point out is a unique position. It's called Community Safety Services Assistant. So this is someone who is unarmed, trauma-informed, and is trained to a high level of mental health awareness and is able to respond to situations and stabilize them, and additionally serves as the eyes and ears and as a visual deterrent to things that might occur across the campuses or the district. Behavioral health specialist. That's someone who's specially trained in behavioral intervention and trauma-informed response. So they're in a position to provide support to students, staff, visitors, classified staff, faculty. And what's important about this particular position is not only are they in a position to address things that rise above the level of a community safety services assistant, but they can also connect this person to resources, whether they're within the district or within the county. Now, this person is not a licensed clinician. However, they are boots on the ground. And what I mean by that is they are able to respond at a moment's notice to any call that we might receive across the district. Student safety aides, we are familiar with them from our Administration of Justice program at Merritt, and they are included in the community safety model from the standpoint that they will be our eyes and ears. We hope at some point they matriculate into the Department of Community Safety, but the expectation is that they're going to be students first, employees second, and we hope that they'll go into law enforcement, but that's not the expectation. Cadets, those are people who specifically want a pipeline that leads them into a law enforcement profession. And they are mentored by police officers, peace officers who are within the Department of Community Safety, and they serve, again, as eyes and ears for the district and provide professional services. Finally, sworn officer, many of us are familiar with that, someone who is state post-certified, who has a license, peace officer license. Also, they're trained in emergency response, and they can investigate serious offenses. And that particular term includes the chief, the lieutenant, and the sergeant. They're all considered sworn officer. And these positions, again, allow us a reservoir of resources to respond to things across the district. So the community safety model proposal, you all might have heard of a tiered response framework. Here's an illustration of that. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. So we receive a call of a disturbance regarding a student at the Laney Welcome Center. They do not have an identification, and the student doesn't have the funds to purchase an identification and is extremely upset. So we receive that call, dispatch triages that call, determines it doesn't rise to the level of a crime or a threat to safety. They dispatch a community safety services specialist. That person arrives on the scene, again, being curious and inquisitive. I understand you're upset. What happened to you? Can you explain what happened? And would you like to sit down or would you like to go outside? Give the person options, give them agency. And during the course of that conversation, we learn that the student doesn't have any money and hasn't eaten for several days. Immediately, the CSSA, for sure, will take that person and connect them with basic needs to get the support that they need and not make this a penal situation or a punitive situation, but provide the support that the student needs. Tier 2 is a supportive tier. So there's an example of a student who was perceived as misbehaving in the library and has been asked to leave, but refuses to do so. Dispatch gets the call, triages the call. There's no crime, there's no threat of violence. Dispatches a community safety services assistant. They arrive, they engage the person. The person is yelling, screaming, but they're not engaging with the CSSA. And they realize maybe this is a higher and more acute behavioral health concern. Let me radio dispatch so they can send a behavioral health specialist. And so that's what happens. We have someone who's at an elevated tier who can respond to not just stabilize the situation, potentially diffuse it, but also connect that person to much needed resources. Finally, a critical situation where you have a person with a weapon on campus. They're not known to be a student or not, and there have been multiple calls that the person has made threatening gestures and statements to others. We absolutely only have one resource that we could possibly send, and that's someone who has all the equipment and the training to respond to a deadly threat situation, hoping to resolve it. Right now, we do not have that resource at our disposal, and that would be tier 3. So in this proposal, there are some things that I want to really amplify, and that is that we have an embedded mental health support system within our model. So tier 1, prevention. Now, every college has a behavioral intervention team. Now, our Department of Community Safety will be integrated to ensure that there is consistency across the district and across the colleges and how we respond to behavioral concerns regarding our students so we can provide the much needed support. Early assessment, this is key. Recognizing triggers that might lead to more problematic situations, but if we see the cues early on, we can avert potential challenges and tragedies down the line. And so everyone will be trained to that standard so they can quickly assess and then make the necessary referrals. And we continue to do education and training across the district with respect to de-escalation. We want to empower our employees to be able to resolve situations at their level, and certainly if they're unable to do so, can call on community safety for support. Tier 2, from a support standpoint, that's on-scene behavioral stabilization. So arriving, recognizing we've got to try to diffuse this, and if unable, again, referring to counseling or other resources to provide the necessary support to our students. And then warm handoffs to the county, being intimately familiar with all the resources that are available to our students and to our district. And then critical, in the moment, they might be able to provide some insight, some perspective, but certainly after the scene has been resolved, they can provide support to our campus community, because assisting with post-incident mental health care mitigates long-term mental health impacts. We are aware of the macro program in Oakland, Mobile Assistance Community Responders of Oakland, and we reviewed it, and what we've done is we've taken elements from that model and incorporated into the Peralta model. So what that looks like is now we have personnel who have a high level of mental health training, but also are trained to provide escorts, to provide visibility on campus, to enter in reports regarding clery-related crimes, to support safety events across the campus. So the remit for our personnel is much broader than macro, but we've implemented and incorporated elements of macro to ensure that we have a mental health component that we can leverage for the support of our campus and district community. So the proposed organization, and I know this is something that might be of interest to people, but it's important to recognize that count doesn't equal capacity and quantity does not equal quality. And currently, a head count doesn't necessarily relate to effective service, and I'm confident that the type of training and skills and the people that we will employ will be able to resolve and address the needs of the district that I've seen in the time that I've been here. We can also provide training, and we can be nimble in how we do that. We recognize immediately that there's something that we need to provide to our personnel or to our district, and we can immediately formalize that training and deliver it to our district community. From what I understand, our college is extremely unique in this model that we are proposing. I'm not aware of another college district that has a mental health component integrated into their public safety posture. Peer districts operate similarly with right-sized people who are professional in-house and are very effective in delivering service to their college districts. And then finally, our staffing model really fits within the norm from the statewide standpoint. The proposed organizational chart. As you can see, it's lean at the top, so 2 managers and 1 supervisor, and the positions that are highlighted in yellow, 24, would be union positions. We will at some point consider whether or not to outsource dispatch, and then finally, we will have to rely on third-party security for overnight support. Here is a bar chart of our peer agencies, and it's important to underscore that these are the entire complement of the Department of Public Safety in these respective jurisdictions. So we go all the way from Solano, you look in San Jose Evergreen, and our model has the largest number of personnel within that model. So I think we are doing very well compared to our peer agencies, and again, right size for what our district needs. Okay, so you might ask, how much is that going to cost? That's a great question. So as you can see from the slide on the left, or excuse me, the bar on the far left, back in 2009, we were paying the Sheriff's Department approximately $3.02 million. If you were to extrapolate the cost consumer price index between 2009 and 2025, we should have been paying in the neighborhood of $4.38 million. But in 2025, we paid approximately $6.2 million. As a result of us moving to a different model with a master service agreement, we are now paying close to $5.5 million. And what we have proposed would cost the district in the neighborhood of $3.4 million. Excuse me, $4.3 million. Thank you. So here are some things I want to call your attention to, specifically December of 2025. We've got a plan recommended by the District Facilities Committee. So that was approved through District Facilities, this comprehensive holistic plan, as well as by the District Holistic Safety and Wellness Committee, in addition to the Planning and Budget Committee. So we went through the shared governance process and received the support of all these committees. The other part is February of 2026. This is the community safety presentation, again, to share what we have gleaned from all of our district community members. And we have approved a revised executive director / chief job description. Those are the main bullet points from that slide. One of the things that this will bring us is California Post certification. Post stands for Peace Officer Standards and Training. It doesn't sound like much, but what it will enable us to do is participate in regional intelligence sharing. Right now, we have absolutely no visibility into any safety concerns at a local or regional level because we are not post-certified, and I cannot get into those spaces. Integration into regional emergency response planning. We formally work with our partners on how to respond to emergencies that might occur, throughout the county. Shared situational awareness. There's a monthly meeting that takes place with all of the law enforcement leaders in Alameda County. I can't attend those meetings. That's valuable information and partnerships that we currently cannot take advantage of. And then formalizing mutual aid and coordinated response protocols. Again, not being post-certified, those are things that we cannot do from our vantage point. I want to end with a slide about our students, because ultimately, that's why we're all here. That's what drives us to commit to this district to ensure their success. One of the things I love most about my job is getting to talk to people, getting to hear from them what impacts them, what are they thinking about, how can I better serve them? And I've had the opportunity to speak with many individuals and groups, both formally and informally, over the course of the last 6-8 months. And there's a common theme that I see through all of those conversations, and it is that they truly are exhausted with telling us what they believe they need to feel safe and create an environment where students can achieve success. And they're hoping that we can take action. And what you have seen today is a representation of all those voices. There are some that may have had differing perspectives, but that's the beauty of shared governance. We take everybody's perspective into account and formulate a product that meets most people's needs. And again, I am incredibly proud of this district, students, classified staff, faculty, administrators, particularly in this very challenging time where we're, again, still grieving. Some people are still not done grieving, but they have said repeatedly that they need something more than what we're providing. And through many conversations and survey results, they have presented it to us. And so again, I really want to thank you for your time and your attention. And I am more than willing to entertain any questions. And I just want to do everything we can to support our students, faculty, classified staff, and administrators. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Pridgeon. I'll turn it over to you, Board President.
Questions or comments?
Thank you so much for that presentation. Can you hear me okay, closer?
Yes.
So thank you, and thank you for, I know we had a conversation in terms of mental health and behavioral health. So I appreciate you adding information. I still have some more questions related to that. And so I wonder, I just want to walk through maybe that with you. The behavioral intervention team partnering, each college has a behavioral intervention team. Can you talk about what that team looks like at each college and what that partnership would look like?
Sure. Each college has a behavioral intervention team. They might call it a little something different. I know some people refer to it as CARES, but there are people who are trained to identify concerns, student behavior, that they may need to intervene quickly, and ultimately should be coordinating with the other colleges. That's one of the things that we're working on, because there's some disjointed responses to some of the students, and we know they swirl. So we want to ensure that we, Department of Community Safety, are integrated into the colleges who are broadly integrated as far as protocols and responses to behavior across the district.
And I might add, so let me add context to Director Pridgeon's response. So a behavioral intervention team is often a vice president. It is like a dean of counseling. It could be faculty members, both mental health specialists. It can be disciplined faculty, classified professionals in different roles. So every committee does itself differently. And the idea behind it is, and we've implemented something called Maxient, which is allowing people across our district community to raise a concern or a flag. A student can raise a concern for themselves, or a faculty member could say, hey, I'm worried that David is coming and looks like disheveled, or is like, continuing to this, like, is maybe not actually like comporting himself in the way that I'm used to. So I'm concerned about him. So oftentimes a behavioral intervention team, a faculty member or staff member or a student themselves may raise their hand and say, I'm concerned, could we check in on David? So that intervention team gets together and they talk. They say, let's look at what's going on with David. Like, how do we kind of think about what interventions or things could we do and model based on what we have? And so there's training that staff have gone through at the different colleges. So each college has one, and it's connected to a way in which faculty and staff can raise those sort of flags. So the idea here is that we always want for community safety to be connected with those committees. So serving on, supporting as a resource, having the chief or the lieutenant or the behavioral intervention specialist sit on those committees so that they're helping inform and learning from each other. So that's sort of the model that's at colleges that I've been at across the country. So hopefully that gives you a little more context.
That too, when my son in high school, they had those types of teams. They called them something different. But I guess that doesn't get to the concern I raised before, which is that when I look at the org chart and when I mentioned macro, they have trained behavioral health members of the team who then respond when there's a crisis or something happening on, that they need to respond. So that those members of that team wouldn't be then responding if there's like a level 2, tier 2 kind of situation. There isn't somebody who's trained in behavioral intervention or behavioral health who would then respond on site.
So actually, I think the way I heard it is that we would have that. So actually, the model actually includes that everybody has a level of training that's really going to help with these things, but there's a higher level with, the behavioral interventionist specialist.
Behavioral health specialist.
The behavioral health specialist would go and respond to particular things as well. So frontline.
It's only 2 for 4 colleges, right?
Right, but we're also expecting, right, that we'd be able to implement first phase, assess the need and what we want to do. So everybody will be trained throughout. That was that model where we showed it with mental health being integrated in our training and our response. We believe right now that adding the additional one after conversations would also help make sure that we'd be able to send the responses at those times. If we assess that we need more, then we could eventually come back and begin to assess whether or not we need to change or add personnel or reshuffle training for our frontline folks who are the community safety. And if you want to add, Director
Yes,
Pridgen.
that was perfect, Chancellor Gilkerson. We do have the positions, we do have the training so that everyone has a certain level of mental health awareness and training, but we also have the behavioral health specialist who will respond similar to the crisis intervention specialist from the macro. But we will have two of them. We will assess it as we move forward and determine whether or not that needs to be adjusted.
Yeah, sorry, can you say where on the presentation it talks about the training that everybody will get on the mental health piece? Sorry if I missed it.
No, no worries.
And then we can move on. And I just wonder about whether there's room, I know we're over 1 million under, whether there's room to add more mental health, more of a mental health or behavioral health staff so that each college has somebody who can respond
Okay.
in that, supportive nature to a crisis or a situation.
We can definitely take your feedback, trustee. Thank you.
Thank you for this. This is really comprehensive. I know we've been waiting a long time to have this conversation, to have this presentation, so thank you very much. My question is kind of piggybacking off of what Vice President Gonzalez-Brito was talking about, only having 2 behavioral health specialists. So I guess my question goes back to where these folks are going to be housed once we have them. And then kind of talking about the logistics if something were to happen, depending on where they're housed, farther away, and how you would plan to address that once there is a crisis that does happen.
That's a great question. So they will be housed in the Department of Community Safety. It doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be sitting in the office. Much of what we do is driven by data. So if there's data that indicates that a large number of incidents are occurring at a certain location, we're probably going to house them closer to that location so they can respond more quickly.
I know one question, if I may, is having MOUs or understandings with local police departments. Is that still going to move forward as we discussed?
Yes, once we're post-certified, because like an MOU, one of the pieces of an MOU is there's an expectation that you will reciprocally provide resources. We don't have any resources. So once we have a department with equipment, with personnel, we can enter into those agreements.
Also, thank you for this report. I do appreciate it. We appreciate it. I do just, this might be a question that maybe is coming a little bit too early or just on time. Regarding the overnight third-party security, because what the proposal is quite progressive. There's a hybrid model. We're the only ones going to be doing this compared to the other community colleges. Just wondering what the third-party security company or whoever, what would their priorities be? Is it theft? Is it loitering? We also have, facilities that are open pretty late, even though there's no classes. So just wondering what the priorities would be, because they wouldn't be up to.
Great question.
snuff.
So it's all the above. So their priority would be between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. And so we would have Department of Community Safety staff operating until 11 p.m., until most things are probably resolved. And then it's overnight when we really don't have people on campus, ensuring no one breaks in, no one steals anything. Again, we've got technology that we're leveraging so we won't have to be everywhere at the same time, and we can dispatch them to the locations where things are occurring.
So I have several questions. First of all, thank you for the presentation. Very comprehensive. One of the things I'm concerned with is, number one, is the cost of the technology. I'm sure it's expensive. We have to pay for it. Technology becomes kind of worthless quickly if it's not maintained. And I think we have to really budget and make a strong commitment to maintaining that technology. Second is we have strong, I don't want to say tools, but ways to implement this in a deeper way by making sure that our faculty and classified staff have a deep understanding of this plan so that they become actually part of it and integrated into it. If there's some way we can at the beginning of every year, go through some type of training module for them where they have to check off, it's part of our job. We'll have to negotiate it, but I think it's important that they be integrated at every level. The next thing is student awareness. How do we make our students aware of this plan? Because many of them, if they're not aware of what's going on, the safety tools that are there, the safety environment we're trying to create, then it's just something that passes by them. It's not until they get in that situation and they need it, then they need to be aware of it beforehand. And the last thing is around funding. I really feel at our colleges across the state, we probably don't get any funding for safety. And this is something that as trustees, as people in this community and all of our community colleges, we really need to start advocating for it, that we have budgets around this area because it's becoming more and more critical to all of our students, to our communities to be safe. So I would strongly urge our trustees, if we want to get on a high horse, this is a good one to get on and start pushing our state representatives and our league representatives and the community pushing us as trustees to get this funded so that we're not providing a safe environment, but we have no money to pay for classes in that safe environment, that we can't take money out of one pot away from students and their ability to succeed to create a safe environment, that they have to both be funded at a level where everybody can succeed. Go ahead, Trustee. Me? You don't have.
All right. First of all, I want to thank the Chancellor and your staff. I go back to 5 years ago. The board had been pressing for safety reforms before the murder of George Floyd. When that happened, the board spoke with one voice. But it's one thing to want a thing and then another thing to have the capacity to do it. And we clearly at that time did not. I don't think anybody in the country had the capacity to shift from the model. Closer to the mic. Okay, thank you. I think it probably is. I just need to get closer for sound. I don't think anybody in the country had the capacity to do what the country wanted to do, what many of us wanted to do. And so it's been hard. We've made a lot of mistakes. Okay, fine. Let's forgive ourselves and figure it out. And I think that's what you're doing. And so first of all, I want to just really thank you for the diligence and the persistence under difficult circumstances. It's just like, this isn't easy to figure out, even if you want to do it, even if you figure out the resources. It's not clear how to do this. And so I think most of us look at this plan and go, yeah, that's a good first draft. Let's see how it goes. But I don't think any of us thinks, yeah, we've nailed it. This is definitely going to work just this way. And so I think when we look at the org chart and we look at the staffing levels, we know that this is our best first pass at this. Let's see what it looks like. I had a couple specific things. On the funding thing, you've got a $2009 figure, and I was wondering why you picked that year as opposed to 2019 or something like that. And the other thing is it says it's the county sheriff's budget, and I was wondering whether that also included ABC security, because this building never had the sheriff as its primary security, but we had a private security company that did the doors and the building. So just if you would double check that, it might help us in terms of thinking, what did we used to spend and how would we inflate that? So that's a separate question. I want to now just shift to this question about thinking about the holistic components of this, because the board and the community really put together and supported a holistic model. I see in this model kind of the safety, the public safety components of it. I see references to the more holistic wellness thing, like we're going to do a warm handoff to the food pantry or whatever it is. But in the org structure, I'm not seeing a line over to counseling, basic needs. And it seems to me that if we're going to make this work, we're going to need some kind of regular communication about like the tie-in between the wellness and the safety stuff, and that's got to happen at this, and in some formal staffing structure. So like what does that look like, and so forth. So that's one question. Another kind of link that I see possible, but not so much emphasized here, and maybe it's in the minds of people working this out or not yet, but our tie-in to our academic programs. And so we've got approval from shared governance bodies, but I'm thinking this is an ongoing conversation. So for example, our psychology programs, our AJ program, sometimes the police academies. My colleague was asking about like, well, how are we going to train these people? What's that training going to look like? And my guess is that there isn't some agency out there that does the training that is this. I have a feeling we're going to probably have to figure it out and develop it. And that seems to me to be a real opportunity for us as a district, as we think about who we are, how we train, where we are located, and the crying need for this model elsewhere. And so if our faculty and staff and counseling staff were all brought into that, I just see so much potential. But obviously that's an academic matter that needs consultation with, with the academic senate, et cetera, but then also with classified senates and so forth as we figure out who's holding what piece. So I'm not seeing that like explicitly laid out, but maybe there are pieces of it, et cetera. I'll stop right there. I'm really excited about this, and I'm trying not to be impatient, because who could, like, if you were impatient, you'd have died already. I don't mean that. That's a horrible thing to say, but if you were impatient, it would have just been a deep sign of frustration for all of us. And so I'm trying not to be impatient. And I'm excited about where we are. So anyway, I'm gonna pause, and Chancellor, if you've got thoughts on this, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the comments and the questions. I think you elevate things. Remember, we're bringing you the first blast of a proposed plan that begins. We now need to get to work on actually doing this. So what you asked me to do is to come, to listen, to hear, to evaluate other options across, to look at to build the ship offline is sort of what you have called me to do. And so it's taken 2 years, and what we tried to do, trustees, as your direction and your leadership, is try to respond last year and this year to like, this is where we are, and really wanting it to be where the value is in our governance work, as Director Pridgeon said. So some of these nuances that you want more information on, we will absolutely come back and do these things. So we need to develop out now the more comprehensive, right? We need to finish the job descriptions, work with our union partners. So there's steps along the way to full implementation of these things. That includes then once we start getting personnel on, how are we working in parallel to develop exactly what you're saying around the training model. How do we look at it? How do we evaluate? How do we keep our community connected to giving us feedback on their experience? And, the comments that you made, Board President Quinlan, as well, right, on this sort of idea about how do we inform people from the get, our employees and our students, about what we offer and how we support that. And that needs to be integrated from employee onboarding. And that's work, that we're working on in HR, right? So a lot of these things are intersecting to build what I hope is a very stronger district community with better infrastructure to respond to the immediate needs. And I wanted to just say, again, there might not be an explicit tie-in on the org chart to the connection to the colleges, but that's what I was trying to demonstrate in my response to Board Vice President, to you all. Absolutely, the model is intended to be integrated at the campuses. It's not going to sit and be behind a desk sitting somewhere. These are visible people who are going to be out, knowing who people are. This is what the community said they want to have relationships with these folks. So this allows stability, assignments at campuses, and active participation. So what you saw, and I appreciate Executive Director Pridgeon Walt Hard, going out and doing multiple presentations, listening to students, presenting at these things is a form of doing this. So we expect that our community safety personnel will be deeply involved in the community, active. They're at orientation, they're at PDD day, right, at Flex Day, they're on these committees, serving on the district, the college safety committees as members who attend regularly, serving on the advisory, right, their behavioral intervention teams, the BIT teams at the colleges. So while we weren't explicit in that, it's absolutely my, and I know Executive Director Pridgeon's desire that these are really campus-based sort of supports, and that they'll have teams that will be able to support them. So, so I offer, and just again, my appreciation to the board for just being so like clear in the direction that you gave me when I came on board 2 years ago, that the need, as Trustee Delphine Polk said, right, to really, we've been waiting for this, like go, but it has been methodical in terms of trying to look at models and do things. So we'll build out stuff. We're going to continue to iterate. We are what I think is a model of a learning institution, right? So this is not static, right? Safety and community and lighting and support and all the things that I said are under the umbrella is the way we're looking at safety, right? Our facilities maintenance and those particular things. So my goal is to come back to you on a regular basis, to our communities, expecting the same from the director, the college presidents, you know, consistently giving messages and talking about it so that you really see the iteration along the way, and we'll give updates on things like what the trainings involved and the partnerships.
Oh,
So again, very exciting, very daunting. It also long awaited, and I'm sure we're going to be in a mode of information gathering for a long period of time, because what I'm hearing is that this is going to be much more difficult than we even imagine and anticipate. I'm glad that we have a plan. I'm glad that we have you all on board and individuals kind of looking at all possible details from all possible perspectives to ensure that we try to not miss anything. So I really appreciate that. I'm going to give you a mix of different questions. A couple are going to be clarification questions. Another one is maybe more comprehensive in terms of detail that I'm just looking for. And the third, maybe a couple questions that are more philosophical. And whether you can answer them now, great. But if not, just come back to me at a certain point. So the first is the regional intelligence sharing that you were talking about. And you said at this particular point, we are not privy to that because we don't have the necessary requirements. Will we have the necessary requirements because we're going to have 5 sworn peace officers? What allows us, or what will allow us to be able to be privy to that?
Great question. It's the post-certification where we have licensed California peace officers, and particularly operating as an executive, as the chief, then I'm invited into those spaces and into those rooms, as well as people within the Department of Community Safety that are sworn.
And then the second question is, so the resolution that was first passed, which I remember, we all remember very, very vividly, was in 2021. And at that particular point, I think the idea was that it was going to be built, or the Public Safety Committee or the Public Safety idea was going to be created within 2 or 3 years. And obviously that did not happen because we are approaching the 6th year. You have a plan of a year-ish, right? And so I guess the question that I have is that in those 5 years, many things happened. It was an odd 5 years because so many different things happened and we had gone through different changes. But even then, a year seems like it's a short period of time. And I know that in terms of the budget, originally, I believe, if you remember, our facilities person at the time thought that what our public safety system would actually be far less expensive than the Alameda County Sheriff's Office. And what we're seeing with our numbers, just looking at what took the place of AXO, ended up being so incredibly expensive. So I guess there's 2 parts to that. The year that you have planned out seems like it would be short. And then also, I know that our model is cheaper, less expensive rather, than what we've been doing so far. I almost feel like, are we open to allowing ourselves more than a year to be able to get this to happen, because that seems, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And we also don't want to hurry it, but there is a sense of urgency. And I know that we don't have a lot of money, but at the same time, we also want to ensure that we get things right.
So trustee, I'll jump in and respond here. So this is the first year of the phased in implementation. So it will not all be done. We're giving you a blush at the first year of the milestones that we've mapped out, but this will be a multi-year process. You know, hiring takes a while, you know, getting the job descriptions, going through our work with our bargaining group, right? All of these things, but these are values that the board has put out, and we're going to like start to do this. So we've set a year of milestone things for you to see that we're saying we're hoping to meet these things. So this will be a multi-year implementation, but knowing we need to do certain things first, right, to build the like infrastructure and the support. So that'd be my first response. And then my second response is, I know Director Pridgeon talked about this idea from count to capacity and quantity to quality. And a lot of the feedback we received in the surveys and just sort of interactions with folks was people want to like know who their person is. And that when you sometimes, and again, this is, I'm so grateful to our contracted services, both the ones that we have now, the ones we've had before, the ones we had when we had ACSO. Like this isn't an endeavor that we're doing in a silo, right? Like this is a group effort. But what we have is more control, right? To dictate, right, conditions, to ask, to do training more on the fly, to actually have like sort of better use of multiple things together that allow us to do it. And so I know I want you to know that this isn't just a budget. This proposal isn't coming to you as a like, we need to reduce the budget. Like we know across the district, we want to stay viable district that can actually meet our expenses and do these things. We're bringing you a model that we actually think is innovative for what the board has directed they want us to do. We need to work on, and through the feedback, some more components to really help address those things. But I do think the quality versus quantity thing is an important thing, that just the local deterrence of whatever people have said, they don't necessarily feel necessarily safer with just that, right? And so we really are honing in on some of that feedback, and I'll let Director Pridgeon add if you have anything addition.
Thank you, Chancellor. You hit the nail on the head. I think people want the people that they can trust, that they see on a daily basis, that they develop relationships with, that have a high degree of training and skill and experience in order to resolve many of the issues that that occur across the district. And what we have proposed, I believe, is a mix of exactly what our district community is asking for. And I think with what we are proposing, we can certainly meet the needs, if not exceed the needs, without having the same number of personnel.
And Trustee Bellarice, may I just offer, I've heard over and over again from folks who will say, we felt safer when we had ACSO, because even though we had far fewer personnel, we knew who they were. Like we knew we could call, you know, a certain person, and we knew them because we trusted them. We had built a relationship. We're trying to build relationships. So this is why I mean, in the like culture conversation, the questions that were asked by Board Vice President and Trustee Gonzalez-Yuin is about that. Like, how do we build that trust and culture around building these sort of networks? And so that's what we're hoping to do, is really reinvest in that piece where people know I can call X, or I know who they are, and I've seen them work. I have a relationship with them. Whereas right now in the model we have, it's like one day a person be sick out, you know, you don't have the same thing because there's a lot of churn and they're mobile sort of things moving around. So again, this is no shade to that, the services and the support that we have. It's just the relational part is what our community, I believe, has been asking us for. And so that's what we're responding with. And that's what was approved through the governance process to say. And so I would say that's what I think that they're articulating.
And what you both just did right now is you actually answered my philosophical question, which I think when people look at these presentations, our eyes go directly to the minimum numbers. Like, how are we going to do this with 2? How are we going to do this with 3? And you all explaining this in that way really kind of, I think, brings it home for me in many different ways. And I think, truth be told, it will still be interesting to see the ways in which that works at the beginning and over a period of time. And what I'm hearing is that you all are making this plan. You're thinking about, again, all of the different variables and elements. but you're also open to having to shift and moderate and calibrate as need be, given that particular period of time. And you had said something, and I can't really rephrase it, but you had said something along the lines of, how I took it was that you were going to continue to moderate and look at what's happening on the ground so that you can make your modifications as is necessary. I think something along those.
Yes, absolutely. So it's allowing the data to inform
Yeah.
how we serve our community and what resources are necessary to meet the needs of our district community.
And then the last two questions. One is, so if this is the first year, how many years are we thinking then to get to the point where we feel like we have 2 total? Okay. And then the last one is the peer comparison with the other CCCs. Exciting that we could be a pioneer model, of course. I think it's turning out that Peralta is becoming a model and creating model frameworks for so many colleges in the system. It's also surprising that I think when people were writing their own resolutions or just their desires to have public safety, they probably all had in mind a holistic safety with a mental health component. So it's interesting that we would be the first to actually have that. In terms of the comparison with the others, we have 23, and I think the closest might be in terms of numbers would be Las Positas, Chabot, because they have 2, not numbers in terms
San
of,
Mateo Community College
San Mateo.
District.
because they have 3 colleges and a district office, or actually the district office is kind of within one of the colleges, so 3. Okay, that answers that question. Okay, that's all I have, I think.
Trustee Johannes?
Thanks. I'm back. So I've been trying to wrap my head around the financial outlook bar chart. So if we could go back to it, so my computer just died, so I'm kind of and I saw that Trustee Gonzalez, you mentioned the 2009. He was wondering why I went to that, but more so, we have it from 2009 to 2025 at 4.38 per year. Right, and then it goes into 2025 with Marina Security at 6.2. I believe we ended their contract because we had them for 3 years and we needed to send it back out to market, correct? So Marina Security would be part of that 4.38 initially. And I'm not sure if 6.2 became something that was 2025's year, or that's been pushed in from previous years since Marina is not part of that 2009 to 2025. And then we have right after that, the bar chart that says 5.45 million again for 2025, making it look as though we've spent nearly 12 million in 2025 on security. I'm unsure. And I don't need the answers on these particular things right now. I'm asking specifically because now we have the following bar chart that says in-house at 4.32, which looks as though we will save money, but there is no date. And because the previous dates are a little bit sort of blended, I'm wondering, is this the initial for a few months or the project? I'm wondering where the number, what it pertains to.
So the 4.38, the red bar chart, that is based upon the CPI increasing from 2009 when we had the contract with the Sheriff's Department. What you see for Marina was the last year of their contract. So not the whole calendar year of 2025, but the year that the contract, so it went 2024 to 2025. And then
It's a fiscal year, Trustee
year.
Johannes.
Yeah.
Well, we had them for 3.
Right, but they're just showing you the last year
Last
of
year.
the contract. That's,
And then the purple is the contract that has been approved for our 2 security partners for that fiscal year.
and then the next one would be it's just showing you the proposed model for a single year is when it's fully implemented. That's the proposed for a single year.
All right. I appreciate it. It just regarding graphing data, it's best to be quite accurate because that's the point of visualization. And that's my profession.
I have one more question. As we're,
Student trustees also have questions, sir.
oh, okay, go ahead.
First of all, clarifying question. I was looking hybrid community safety model. Savings kind of, in my words, comes to like we're cutting something. And what are we going to cut? And what are the students going to notice first? This is my question, if we're going to cut.
So that is in comparison to what we are currently paying for contracted security. The model that we're proposing will be approximately $1 million less than what we're currently paying. So we're not cutting anything. I would say we're deploying our resources differently with an in-house model.
Okay.
Just want to start off by saying, from a student perspective, it's very comforting to see safety being acknowledged in a variety of different ways, not just for student safety or faculty safety, but in terms of the resources we have on campus, as well as mental health resources. So I very much appreciate that being included in the discussion and baked into this plan. I had a question about the student safety aids. So I know currently we have many student workers employed across our campuses, in many of the departments as well, Wellness Center, Learning Resource Center. We also have student navigators at each campus. I was wondering, are the student safety aids baked into these roles, or are these separate roles for students? What does that look like?
It's a great question. The student safety aides are separate, and that moving forward, they will be students in the Administration of Justice program at Merritt College. Currently, we have some student safety aides who aren't in the program, but they went through 25 hours of training last summer to understand how to operate as a student safety aide. So it's separate and apart from all the other student employment positions.
So these student safety aides would go through the merit training, and then they would be dispersed at each of the colleges, or?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So I have one final question. In the next several years, we're going to be going out for a new facilities bond. And I would hope that safety, this technology would be part of that facilities bond, both integration into our new buildings. And I know we can't do maintenance on anything with a facilities bond, but if we upgrading to new technology throughout the campuses that are, and it's built into our new buildings, then hopefully we can use our facilities bond to fund some of that cost of the upgrade in technology as new technologies become available.
Absolutely. It's a really good point, Board President. And I think additionally, we also, as a district community, and you've all demonstrated this, right, in the last 2 years in particular, is really looking at like total cost of ownership. What is it really? And you did a public presentation on total cost of ownership as one of your board goals last year, where you were really looking at, we need to be able to not only just implement something, but be able to keep it going. And so how do we make good decisions with the resources we have, knowing we have to put away to keep technology upgraded to do these kind of things, and holding the direction in line to say these are things that we need to keep, even if outside of a geo bond or some other opportunity. So I think this has been baked in through our governance processes, with more conversations at the planning and budget committees, at the colleges, understanding that sort of responsibility for us. And so it's a point well taken that we would want to leverage the opportunity, and grateful to the voters in Alameda County who've supported our district in so many ways. And so we're always going to be really judicious with thinking about what we go to them and ask for, because of your really incredible point. We need people to GOT. We need people to get out the vote. We need people to understand California's community colleges serve 70% of students of color. We are the pathway to economic opportunity and development, that we need to fund all parts of this. We need to look at policies and laws, just like we're doing at the local level, that inhibit the ability for our colleges to thrive and the budget to be able to do this. And we're walking into years of budget instability in California that I think we need to be really mindful for. So I want you to know that I have a lens around the fact that the investments that we've been making, we're being really thoughtful about the ones that we're doing, and making sure that we're thinking through the best way to procure and to actually maintain what we have in a way that, we've had room to grow in our ability to do that. And I hope across the district community, people have been seeing that with the improvements and the investments that we've been making, the quicker response time to some of those things. Some things take longer, just some things are out of our control, and we're trying to do it. But absolutely, it's a really good point that's well taken.
So, just a couple more things. I think it would be, does the budget currently include training? Because I'm sure we could do really great in-house training, but I think we really should look at like what Macro does for their training. So because it's specifically for a safety model, a public safety model, so I'm just wondering if the budget includes that kind of training.
It does. So the training aspect is part and parcel to our SWAC participation, the statewide Association of California Community Colleges, which we have a seat on the board. So we get a lot of training through that, which is a lot of the training we showed you tonight. In addition to that, we can also do a contract with them for specialized training around de-escalation, mental health, et cetera. So there's a lot more tools we can use that we have not participated in as of yet, but there are other aspects that we can use, and they have been doing training. So we did, like, for instance, last summer, we did de-escalation training last summer. I think we did 5 modules of that across the district. We will continue to do that more. And there's elevated versions of that same training, so you can go more deeper dives around tabletop exercises, et cetera. So there are a lot more avenues. We just hit the ones on the front end, but there are things we could do to deepen that training.
The behavioral health specialist, it says here, will be trained. They are not clinician level positions, but they are trained in behavioral intervention and trauma-informed response. Where is that training coming from?
We have it in the job description. I'd have to come back and give it, but it's everything below the level of a clinician. So there are things like crisis intervention training.
So they'll come with the training.
Yes.
They're
We'll be
looking for-
hiring.
Yes.
And frankly, Board Vice President, it's a great question. We may get a clinician, somebody who actually has the clinical training, right? They may see this as a kind of position they want. So we're not requiring that. We're not actually double dipping, but they may already come. So for instance, right, some people come with a JD, right? Or they have different backgrounds that we're not expecting. So we'll be making sure when we do the recruitment for positions, we're looking for it. But we will also, like every post-certified area and department, will have ongoing and regular training that's required to stay up to date, and that will be in the purview of the executive director chief to keep us, moving in that. And I do want to just piggyback off of what CL Nelson just said to you about the transition, and I want to just thank the board again. That transition to SWAC that we all made the decision is really your leadership and helping us expand our ability to provide these resources and do it in a comprehensive way in a network that is community college focused.
So yeah, that's great. I would say just one last thing. I think with the behavioral intervention team, like maybe it doesn't make sense on the org chart, but I do think like talking about how they would partner in terms of like referrals over or how they play a role in this whole program is important, because I do think they're important and can be a piece to this puzzle. So yeah.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. And there's a national model that our BIT teams, I know Merritt College sent their team a year ago to get like the national training that does behavioral intervention. So this isn't just training for the personnel here, but we'll be much more, I appreciate the feedback. We can be much more thoughtful about making sure that we're explicit about how this actually is really more embedded at the colleges than sitting somewhere sort of off on the side.
I do encourage you. I think we do need more than 2 specialists, but
I absolutely will take a look at the recommendation without a doubt. I really appreciate all of the robust feedback and questions.
I want to circle back around to the community safety model values, the trauma-informed and culturally responsive and equity-driven. I'm really excited about this. And I'm wondering, today I was at a Black History Month forum at Laney, and I asked the question about kind of like when we're looking at seeing about the passing of Reverend Jackson and the Rainbow Coalition and kind of all that coalitional work. And I'd asked the question of the panelists, like, if we look in the district, where can we see that work going on? And the response was simultaneously really interesting, but also a little bit discouraging, because Jason Seals was responding. He said, well, I think the best coalition work that we've got going on is in our classrooms. You just look at who we have in our classrooms and the work we're able to do, and it's like, that's the model, and that's where we really bring the values. But then he went on to say, and then there's a lot of work that's not happening within the district interracially, where we still have conflict. It's like, I think we're doing so much better, but, I think part of it is we defer hard discussion sometimes. And what I like about this model and the integration of the, community safety and health is that it's really looking at the health of the entire community. And that we need to be growing. One of the things that I really liked about how you presented it was, like, can we be curious about where we're struggling? And I think grounding ourselves in these values will be really helpful, not just for the, the hardcore safety issues, but just the wellness of the entire community. And I think that's really, I don't think we could have been here a couple of years ago. Chancellor, I really think that this is the result of a very different shift in the culture at Peralta. And I think we have a lot to be proud of there. We're not there yet, but I think this is yet another kind of foundational stone in this thing that we're building. So thank you.
Thank you. It really is a partnership with everybody, right? And I think I was trying to say that in my opening remarks. What I've learned so much is my ability to be safe, my ability to keep people, it is a we endeavor. It is not a solo sort of thing. And so again, that's why I think Director Pridgeon and I wanted to say so much gratitude and thanks to everybody who's come out and shared and responded to surveys and come to forums and talked to us and given ideas and doing something. And now they're telling us they want it, but it is a we endeavor, and they're saying we want to move forward. And so I do believe everybody is invested in what we do. And we, to your point, need to keep that at the central focus is how do we keep engaged? How do we do that? And so really good points that you're making, and certainly is a philosophy that I hold very close to me.
Is that all our comments? I think our meeting's adjourned then.
Thank you.